Hi, my name is George Willett, and I want to speak to you today about plagiarism. I will define plagiarism, show that it is a global problem, discuss specifically the differences between academic plagiarism and pulpit plagiarism. First, I will start with what is plagiarism? Plagiarism is, according to dictionary.com, is an act or instance of using or closely imitating the language and thoughts of another author without authorization and not representation of that author's work as his own by crediting the original author. Some simply put, plagiarism is using someone's work and not giving them the proper credit and claiming it to be our own work. Plagiarism comes from the Latin word plagiaris, which stands for kidnapper. Believe it or not, we're actually kidnapping someone else's words when we plagiarize. So some believe that plagiarism is not just an ethical issue, that it is has repercussions all around the world. This brings me to global plagiarism. Global plagiarism is both global in the classroom and global worldwide. Stephen Lucas, in his book Public Speaking, The Art of Public Speaking, defines global plagiarism is stealing your speech entirely from another source and passing it off as your own, meaning you're taking someone's entire document and trying to use it as your own. According to Interface, one of Pakistan's leading education websites, plagiarism is a universal problem that confronts universities worldwide. Lecturing experience confirms that plagiarism is practiced by students from all cultures. Plagiarism is an educational issue, not mere cultural matter. Students will and do exploit a system that exploits them. What is being compromised here is the integrity of a quality education, something that is valued by all. Many universities have adopted this definition and established their own rules that apply to plagiarism in their institutions. The plagiarism most schools address is academic plagiarism, which I will now discuss in brief parts here. Academic plagiarism, stated by Irving Hexham from the Department of Religious Studies in the University of Calgary, occurs when a writer repeatedly uses more than four words from a printed source without the use of quotation marks and precise reference to the original source in a work presented as the author's own research and scholarship. Continuous paraphrasing using serious interaction with another person's views. Indiana University Bloomington has answers for, they answered the question, how can students avoid plagiarism? To avoid plagiarism, you must give credit whenever you use another person's idea, opinion, or theory. Any fact, statistics, graph, drawings, any pieces of information that are not common knowledge, quotations of another person's actual spoken or written words, or paraphrasing of another person's spoken or written words. Our next topic we'll talk about is oral plagiarism. What is missing from most university plagiarism rules is the use of oral plagiarism. We sometimes take it for granted that when a person is saying something or speaking, that they're speaking the words that they're their own, unless we've heard them somewhere else. The University of Leicester in the UK reports that plagiarism can occur also in your own illustration, maps, and tables. Your captions need to be acknowledged in any material or ideas taken from a source that is not your own. Meaning, if you use pictures or graphics or tables from anyone, you must cite who you use it from. What are some of the punishments for plagiarism? This is kind of odd, but if you look at it here, if you do get caught plagiarism, according to Stephen Lucas out of his book, if you are caught plagiarism, a speech in class, the punishment can range from failing grade to expulsion from school. If you're caught plagiarizing outside the classroom, that means in the community somewhere, you could lose your good name, it could damage your career, and you could be sued and lose large amounts of money. Is it worth your while then to make sure you know what plagiarism means? Let's talk about pulpit plagiarism. Pulpit plagiarism is stealing someone's sermon or part of the sermon without giving credit to the original author or the original pastor or preacher who actually inscribed it. Uh, Ron Forsythe from churchleaders.com defines it this way as he reviewed Scott Gibson's book on should we use someone else's sermon. Defining the word plagiarism, Scott cites there are two definitions. In the word of preaching, a pastor who takes sermons from another preacher word for word without giving credit is guilty of plagiarism. That is stealing what is not yours. In another instance, he says, it is hard to footnote sermons. That's no way to make people in the pews understand all the sources you are using, especially if they're highly academic sources. So, in using and looking at pulpit plagiarism, I see that there are three major problems. I believe that conscience is one of the three major issues here, as Ron Forsythe describes. He says here, I am guarding my conscience, my own conscience, in my sermon preparation and delivery. I must uh, add that my conscience has to guide me and my conscience has to guide you. The scripture that follows that is, why should my freedom be judged by another's conscience? The second major issue is diligence. I am faithfully studying the word that I am preaching. If using the words of an author is simply an excuse or a temptation of my solemn duty. It says that we are to present ourselves, yourself to God as one approved, a workman who does not need to be ashamed and who is correctly handling the word of God. That's 2 Timothy 2:15. The third issue is trust. Frankly, I think this issue brings most clarity to Scott Gibson's question. If you have to really ask yourself the question, if you are using someone else's information and you're giving it to people, are they going to trust you? This is very hard for someone to gain the trust back from someone. I hope you have found my video very helpful in your beginning studies in your college life. Thank you again for viewing.